Welcome to Nova TV, everyone. Nova TV is an initiative by the Nova Committee at the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Through Nova TV, we equip small and medium enterprises to grow in today's challenging economy. Before we go into today's episode and further into today's episode, we want to share one quick announcement for you, and that's in relation to our upcoming conference, our SME conference titled Digimark Reloaded, Innovate to Elevate. It is taking place on the 27th of June, 2024. It's an all-day conference at the UWI Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. A special thank you to all of our sponsors for this year's Digimark conference. In particular, we do recognize our platinum sponsors, Flow and Republic Bank. Thank you to them and thank you to all of our sponsors. This is going to be a wonderful conference. Do sign up at chamber.org.tt/Digimark 2024. We will provide details on all of our social media channels, so connect with us and ensure that you don't miss this one. Okay, so back to today's point of focus. In today's episode, we're focusing on raising capital. Very recently, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce signed a memorandum of understanding with the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. And so in today's episode, we will have a guest from our partner at the Stock Exchange. And so we're very, very happy to have them on as we discuss raising capital through equity financing on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. This is a real engine for growth. So it is with great delight that I want to firstly welcome today's host to the stage, Mrs. Lara Dowell, who is the co-producer of Nova TV. She's also a member of the Nova Committee. Lara has a real heart for MSMEs. She's the Training and Performance Manager at Silver Lining Limited, which is a US-based company doing behavior in science that helps small businesses to hit their financial goals through a combination of specialized software and human support. Lara is also an entrepreneur specializing in talent management and coaching. So welcome, Lara. Really glad to have you moving from behind the scenes as our co-producer today to being our host of today's episode.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
We also have, as I said, from our partner, special guest, Mrs. Eva Mitchel, who I'll bring to the stage. Eva Mitchel is the Chief Executive Officer at the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, and is wholly owned subsidiary, the Trinidad and Tobago Central Depository Limited. She joined the TTSE in 2016 as the Manager of Market Operations, with the responsibility of overseeing the daily market operations of the exchange. She has over 23 years experience in various areas of financial services, such as finance, asset management, retail and commercial banking, and brokerage services. She holds BSc Honors in Business Management from the University of New Brunswick in Canada, and an MSc in International Finance from the UWI Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business. We're really happy to have Eva on. Welcome, Eva.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Lara. Thank you for having me, Lorenzo. And I'd like to applaud the Nova Committee for this initiative. It's something that is much needed and very timely. So once again, thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Ladies, I leave the floor to you as we discuss raising capital today.
Thanks, Lorenzo.
All right. So we're having a conversation, Eva, and all our viewers will kind of join us in it, but it's just you and me for now.
Right.
So personally, for me, I know my experience with the stock exchange started when I was doing my diploma in IR. That was the absolute first time I heard anything about it, anything about stocks and bonds. I must admit, I was a total novice. Had it not been for that class, I would know nothing about it and I would fear it. And like myself, a lot of persons may not have had any information about it. And all you know is just, the little banner around the screen that you see at news time. And, oh, that's the stock exchange. And you really think that it's for those larger organizations, those big financial organizations, big business, small business, not for us, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so there is a fear of, if I even enter into that space, one, I don't have enough information. I don't know anything about it. And could I lose my company? Am I giving it away? Right? So some legitimate fears are there. And is this the best thing for me, right, as a small business? Can you speak to some of those fears that have, and of course, I know you're privy to even more than that, alleviate those fears?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a very good way to kick off our conversation, Lara. It is your feedback is very valid. It's actually feedback that we've gotten before, and we're trying to address in a very rigorous way at the exchange. But just allow me, based on your question, to just kind of give a background of the exchange, what is our purpose, and then I'll delve into the focal point, which is the SME market for today. So
Beautiful.
essentially, we are, believe it or not, a 42-year-old company, right? We are a stock exchange that provides a safe and efficient way for companies to raise capital in a very regulated and in a very safe manner. We also provide a means or a marketplace through which investors can buy into these companies that are listed and benefit from the growth and profitability of the companies that are listed, right? So we not only do we serve the market in terms of accessing capital, but we also serve the investors. So we bring investors and companies together, right?
Nice.
Yeah. So with respect to the SME market, the SME market was created in 2012, so it's about 14 years old, and it was created with as part of a collaborative effort between the stock exchange and the government to encourage SMEs to look at other funding options besides traditional borrowing or banking options, right? It was created for the enterprising businessman or businesswoman who's looking to take their company to that next level. So at this stage, I would say, even though it's called an SME market, right, I think understanding where you are in that chain of readiness or in that line of readiness is important. But to actually become listed and to be listed on the stock market, we are looking specifically at the M's in that equation of the SME, right? We do have an ecosystem in place that will encourage the S's, which are the smaller companies. But to get to that stage and to go through the gestation process, which is not an overnight process, it will take some time. The companies that are most ready and should take that next step are the companies that belong in the M category of the SME. But we'll go deeper into that when we continue our conversation. But why is it that the government found that it was essential for us to establish this market? So, as you know, SMEs are key to any economy. As a matter of fact, SMEs, with respect to the total number of companies that are actually registered in Trinidad and Tobago, SMEs actually make up 85% of that. So
Yes.
you can see how critical they are. With respect to their contribution to overall GDP, SMEs contribute as much as 35% of our country's overall GDP. Again, they are very critical. They stimulate growth. They are very important in terms of job creation. Yet, we need these companies to grow, obviously, for us to have a sustainable economy, a sustainable future. But when we look at how they are accessing funding, only 11% of this base actually access funding through financial institutions and banks. So at that point in time, we found it necessary to ensure that there are other options for SMEs to consider. And the SME market that is available on the stock exchange is one. And as you know, despite this importance of SMEs, they continue to face challenges in terms of getting access to capital, as I would have alluded to before. And not just access to capital, but getting access to capital in a effective, in a efficient, and in a manner that works for them, where they can benefit from, and ensures that this access is able to contribute to their growth, their development, their innovation, all the ideas that a business owner may have in terms of how he sees his company or her company in the future. So, I mean, the realities of a lot of businesses is that they've reached a certain level of success, right? The product, they offer a product or a service. It could be that product or service, whether it be a pepper sauce or whether it be, taxis or so, you've gotten to that point where, your company is in high demand. And there's also a buzz in the market around your company. Your team is excited about, being part of the company. And all indications from your company, from the outside looking in, is that the company is doing so well. However, the reality within the business itself is that your company is poised to grow, yes, but it's not generating enough cash to expand into new markets. It's not generating enough cash to expand its product lines, and it's not generating enough cash to hire highly skilled professionals, right? So as an entrepreneur, you worry about the growth of your company. So most SMEs will have a high level of debt or a high leverage position, and that makes it difficult for them to even undertake any growth through financing or through bank borrowing. So it becomes, and even if you are able to, it becomes very burdensome to carry, because you keep mounting this debt, and then you have this obligation every month. And at some point, your growth will be stymied. So again, the underlying fact is that there's a need to raise capital, but your experience is that is challenged, right? So what do you look at? And these are genuine concerns that that we have been privy to. These are genuine concerns that we're in discussions with a lot of SMEs about. And we would want to say that, listen, look at the stock exchange, look at the equity option, and understand the benefits of it, understand where you are in terms of that readiness, and understand how long it will take, understand if it works for you. And this is what we at the exchange has put a lot of effort into. So we are actually undertaking a lot of seminars, a lot of webinars, a lot of outreach programs to raise awareness of it. And I mean, that's why I'm here to contribute to that, right? So going back to the concerns, there are a lot of different questions that SMEs will ask us, like, okay, so I want to take my company public. I'm hearing this thing about a valuation, right? How do I get a fair valuation? Because in your mind, you would have your own idea of what your company is worth, right? And you don't want anybody telling you, well, this is what your company is really worth, right?
Exactly.
Correct. And sometimes you get to the point where you are not comfortable with that valuation, and then you want to now look at other different means of raising capital because you are not comfortable with what that valuation is at that time. But you have to begin with the end in mind, and you have to understand that this is a transformation that you need to undertake. This is a mindset that you'd have to change, and you would have to ensure that whoever is involved in the process understands your needs, understands your growth potential of the company, and is able to advise you properly, right?
Right. So it's a give and take.
Pardon?
So is it a give and take?
It is a compromise, but you're compromising with the end in mind. And what we have done at the stock exchanges, we understand that these are some concerns that would need to be pacified. And these are concerns that we would need to work with the wider market on. So we have, I like to call it, we have developed a nice cake or a nice pie with some really nice ingredients, right? And those ingredients comes with a lot of benefits, whether it be financial or non-financial, which I will explain. And then at the end of that now, I would hope that, us SMEs or SMEs out there, we take a bite of that pie, right?
Right.
So
I'm looking at the time, Eva, and so I want to move us along. But is there a space? Is all of this information available on the website?
The benefits of
the
stock
website.
Yeah, so everything is available on the stock exchange's website. But we would be happy to have a conversation, sit down and have a conversation, because sometimes a conversation is what really answers some of the concerns, right?
Yes.
But on our website, you'll see a list of our benefits. One of the major benefits of listing in the SME market is the tax incentives. So companies that list on the companies that list on the SME market benefit from 0% corporation tax, green fund levy, and business levy for the first 5 years from listing on the stock exchange.
They say if it's nice, do it twice. I think, Eva, you need to repeat that for people, because 0% is a big deal.
Yeah, so companies that list on the SME market on the stock exchange benefit from 0% top line and bottom line taxes. So top line meaning green fund and business levy, so your sales tax, and then 0% corporation tax for the first 5 years of listing. And it gets better. After the first 5 years, for the next 5 years, you pay only 50% of whatever the prevailing rate is. So essentially, you have a 10-year tax break period, right?
That is a good deal for business.
Correct. So if your profitability is not where you think it is or where you would like it, and you are paying significant taxes on your revenue and significant taxes on your profits, then you would find value in something like this, right? So I have a slide that I'd like you to bring up, Lara, so I could just explain some more with respect to what I just alluded to.
Is the first one, estimated listing costs?
Yeah. So just another question that some SMEs ask us is, okay, well, how much would this cost me for me to go public? So let me say one time that this does not include stockbroker fee, and it does not include any advisory fee. This is pure regulatory fee from the stock exchange and the SEC perspective. So when you are listed, you have to pay an initial fee over to us and the SEC, totaling $34,600, right? Thereafter, there's an annual listing fee that you also pay, that is split between the SEC, who is the main regulator of the securities market, and also to the stock exchange. And these fees are basically registration fees, because you'll have to register your company in order for it to get listed. So you pay $22,500 annually to us after listing. If you can move on to the next slide. Right. So the point I was trying to make here is, let's say you're an SME company, and you are seeking financing, let's say in the vicinity of 13 million, right? For a company that earns, let's say, 17 million in revenue annually, and let's say your financing, your operating expenses are 13 million, right? You are predominantly debt financing, so we have a lot of bank borrowing, and let's assume that most of your bank borrowing is at at a finance cost of 9% based on a $13 million loan. So that means you have to pay to the bank annually $117,000. So your profit is $3,883,000, and then that profit is taxed. So your net income is $2.7 million, right? This is in a debt financing option. If you were to finance this through equity, you will not have to pay that taxation, that 30% taxation. So you actually save that 1.12 million, and that 1.12 million can now be redirected into the company, for future growth of the company, or for any other, it can be used as capital for other projects or so, right?
Gotcha.
So there's a big difference in terms of your net income and your profitability. So what
And
it shows there.
I guess it makes sense then that you have to pay. So then you have money to pay this, you could say. But I know some persons may be looking and thinking, oh my God, I'm not even making $1 million. Do I qualify for this, right? So these are for some small, and we deal with micro, small, medium enterprises.
Right.
So for our micro, small enterprises, some of them may be their eyes boggling out their head and they're like, I have not even begun to see these kinds of figures.
Right. Okay.
Does that disqualify me from getting into the stock exchange because I'm not there yet?
Well, first of all, in order for you to qualify for the stock exchange, we don't look at your revenue. We look at your capital base. And your capital base has to be between 5 million and 50 million. So your capital base, which does not include retained earnings, right? Even if you were to consider a private equity option, right, through, let's say, angel investors or so, before you actually make that decision to go public. So you have private equity. So it's still equity. You're still not obligating yourself to a monthly installment or any sort of high debt cost. It's private equity where you have your angel investors. And we do have an ecosystem locally that's built to support private equity investment. So I would suggest, if you fall within that category, you speak to a private equity provider. And in most cases, when you have your private equity investors, at some point in time, the private equity investors will want to cash out. And as they cash out, they can cash out when you are listed on the exchange. That is their exit strategy. So it's a pathway to listing. But again, we go back to say you have to ensure that you assess your level of readiness to go in public, because you may not be ready to just take that big step. You'd want to, like I say, engage an angel investor or some other private equity option where you have a limited amount of investors, right? And then you also give those investors the option of cashing out when you do eventually list on the exchange.
Go public.
Yeah, and you go public. Yeah. So essentially I've shown the value with respect to the tax incentives. But I wanted to make one other point. Yeah, it's really good value because you have your profitability could be multiplied with saving just based on the example that I've given you. And this can be a real case. And the number is sufficient enough for you to now ensure that your valuation and monetizing your company and your valuation is in line with whatever tax savings that you will get. So remember, when you're doing the valuation, you would not have considered tax savings as another inflow into your company. Now you have an additional amount that you can now consider that will help build and get to that point in your valuation where you are most comfortable, right? So like I said, that was the exchange trying to put the right ingredients for the cake, right? But one other point I wanted to make, Lara, about the tax incentive, and I hope I'm not getting too technical here, but there's an interest tax shield of 30% when you use debt financing. We also now, the stock exchange, align that tax relief of 30% to the equity issuer. So there's really no disadvantage in having both debt and equity because you benefit from both. So having that interest tax shield on debt is important, and then having that interest in that tax incentive at the same level is also important on the equity side. So what this essentially does, Lara, is balance your balance sheet.
Beautiful. So
Yeah.
I know that there must be tons of other benefits, and you said that it's available on the website. I want to jump very quickly in the interest of time because we only have 5 more minutes. Eva, time is flying fast. Only 5 more minutes, yes. So I'm a small business. I've qualified. I've assessed, my company, and I'm now listed on the stock exchange. Woohoo! Now what? How do I how do I operate, right? So again, going back to the banner across the screen during news time, what can I expect?
Right. So after you apply to us and your shares are listed, you will have to commit to us that you will follow all the rules of the exchange, which would include the disclosure rules. So you are going to tell us when you have material information so that we can tell the wider market, because remember, you now have investors, and investors will need this information to make informed decisions. And you would also have people who are not yet investors who are looking at your company and might potentially have interest in your company. So the more transparent you are and the more news you put out, is the more interest you're going to get and more confidence you'll get in your share price,
so
right?
Transparency is a big part of this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're also going you will also going to have an annual general meeting of shareholders, right? Where you will then present an annual report. Your annual report will detail your financial performance over the last year. And you have an AGM, annual general meeting. And you, in that report, you would let us know whether or not your company decides on paying any dividends out of the profitability of the company. Now, the company decides what its own dividend policy is. You set that as a business owner, as a board. You set that. That is not something that is dictated by law or in the rules. You set that.
So, Eva, I'm hearing that our small businesses really need to get very organized. So from the time you get listed, you have to be transparent, you have to get organized, you need to put things in place. Is there a facility or a counseling space in the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange where a small business could come and say, well, what to do next? How do I, or should they seek this out privately?
Right. So remember we spoke about creating the ecosystem that will make this process as easy and as understandable for the business owner. So the exchange understands that there is some hand-holding that has to happen. So what we have done and we launched in 2022 was our mentorship program. And the mentorship program is one that is basically a person that you engage that will help you with decisions as it relates to timing of the issue, as it relates to how do I go about getting listed, as it relates to corporate governance, right? And these mentors are mentors that were actually approved by the stock exchange as persons that could serve as mentors. So we actually get involved in that process from that perspective. However, a company may have been operating within that particular space and may more or less be ready and have all those technical and all that support structure in place, and may have its own mentor. So that company could bring its own mentor as well to ensure that the corporate from a corporate governance perspective, all is in place and everything is needed in order for the company to proceed to listing.
Nice. Beautiful. So, Eva, we're wrapping up now, and it seems like we just blinked and time is almost over. So, for all our SMEs out there, if there was just one thing that you wanted them to hold on to from this conversation, or maybe that was not mentioned, that you need them to take away when we're looking at raising capital through equity financing using our Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, what would that be?
I know you said one, but I'll just give you two if you permit me, right? Two very quick. I think one major concern is loss of control. We didn't really touch on that, but there's a general fear of losing control, and being at the stranglehold of regulators. That is a general fear that SMEs will have. I would want to say that in coming and in becoming a listed company, you would have to only sell 20% of your company, so you still maintain control. And that 20% means that if you would like to come back to market at some other day to raise additional fund, you can sell off and still sell another 10 or 20, and you still maintain control. All right. The other thing is I would like to say is that, you know, we all recognize that the landscape is changing, and it's changing rapidly, and agility is a key component of running a business in today's environment. And agility also means that you have to strongly consider how your company and how your business is being financed. And the tax incentives, as I explained to you before, provides a really good way to be that game changer in evaluating your returns, and also being that game changer in terms of balancing your balance sheet and future proofing it for any sort of unforeseen events like COVID. You know, yeah. So take a bite of the cake.
Another conversation, Eva. You're going to get me started when we're talking about, you know, unexpected financial issues and crises over, you know, worldwide. But we'd love to have you back at another point. This is a very hot topic, and I feel like we've just scratched the surface. Thank you so much for taking the time.
It was my pleasure, Lara. It was my pleasure. So anytime.
Beautiful. Hi, Lorenzo.
Hello again, ladies. This was wonderful. I was busy taking notes, tracking the conversation. I think there's a lot of food for thought here. I like that last point, and I have it. We have it up on screen about that issue of agility. We know that there continues to be a lot of uncertainty about the future, and so I think a key takeaway for me is how accessing funding and all of the benefits that relationships with the TTSE and listing on the TTSE could bring really can give medium-sized enterprises in particular, because I think that's the audience that Eva would have emphasized. Medium-sized businesses, the upper hand and a real lift. We don't know all of the details of the future, and so it makes sense today to be prepared for the future. And it's clear to me that the access to capital through the TTSE and all of the support that they bring to businesses really becomes an important asset. Yep. So a special thank you to Eva for coming on board. We do need to have another either episode of Nova TV, or maybe we can have a longer webinar of some kind. This is part of our ongoing collaboration with the Stock Exchange, where perhaps we can have even more details, maybe a full presentation of some more details. So I would say, in good faith, Eva, we could probably plan for that.
Absolutely.
In the coming months. So everyone, stay tuned for information. Follow the Nova channels, Nova and all of our channels on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and on Facebook. Thank you, Eva. We look forward to continued collaboration. Lara, excellent job with hosting today, your first debut, moving from...
Oh, nice, Lara.
So stop.
Not my first, Lorenzo.
Well, great having you both. In closing, I just want to announce again that we do have Digimark Reloaded taking place on the 27th of June. So follow us on social media. You'll get all of the details. Really important event for all micro, small, and medium enterprises. Thank you to our host and guest again, and thank you to our wonderful audience. This has been Nova TV, and we will see you all in our June episode. Take care.
Take care.